Well, hi, everybody. I'm Lee Bodette, your host of the Test Drive podcast. With me is Scott Nickerson from Sport Car USA. Scott, we welcome you. And I've been a radio broadcaster for over 40 years. Mentioned the Test Drive podcast that we're doing right now. We also have a series called Test Drive on the YouTube channel where we have lots and lots of fun. We test drive various vehicles and talk about them while we're driving. So, yeah, we're looking forward to doing more of those in the upcoming months. This past Saturday, Sport Car USA, which we both represent, was at the Kingman Classic. Actually, it's not the Kingman Classic anymore, is it? It's just called the Classic?
The Classic.
Just the Classic. So this started back in 2010 as the Kingman Street Classic. And those of you who are not from the St. Albans, Vermont area, we're in northern Vermont. That's where Sport Car USA is based. A nice little town of St. Albans and city. They used to have all the classic and muscle cars, modern muscle cars, on a street called Kingman Street. Got a little crowded there. So what they decided to do is expand the Classic and call it the Classic onto the Taylor Park, which is a beautiful park. And Main Street in St. Albans, the city of St. Albans. Cars lined up all up and down the street. They closed the street. Big American flag by the St. Albans City Fire Department. It is a fundraiser, by the way, for the St. Albans Fire Department.
Yeah, and they fill Main Street. Like, even I'm not surprised they outgrew Kingman Street because it's not very big, and they've already, when they do the show, the Main Street is packed full. And then there's stuff in the park, like you were saying, and usually it's at the same time as the town farmers market.
Right.
So you kind of get traffic from the farmers market people going to the car show and vice versa. There's definitely a couple guys that were there. They're like, oh, my wife wanted to go to the farmers market. And I was like, oh, there's a car show.
Perfect.
That's a great deal for me. I got to tag along and go to a car show.
Exactly. Yeah. It started in 2010, as I'd mentioned. And now we're in 2023 with an expanded show because they have much more acreage to display the cars. You mentioned the farmers market. I think it's a great tie-in. Some of the farmers market people, they don't really believe that, but I don't know why you wouldn't want more people walking around for 3 hours. We did well at the farmers market.
Yeah, we got some food while we were there from a few of the vendors, and like you were saying, it's a benefit for the town fire department. So they're there grilling burgers and dogs, and all the proceeds go to them. We had a couple of awards that we made up. We had the Lee Bodette Award, the second annual. So you had the pressure and the privilege of picking a winner for that.
Yeah, I picked a gentleman by the name of Tom Hungerford. He had a Mustang.
Was it a 70?
It was a 70 Mustang. And
with the Boss.
It was the Boss. Yeah. Gorgeous car. A lot of history with that car. And the previous owner, who unfortunately passed away, he was at every car show that I've ever been to. And I've been told he went to every car show that was possible. He just loved that Boss. And unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Tom Hungerford, who's a St. Albans resident and used to be a owner of Hungerford Ford. They had a big Ford dealership in St. Albans for many, many years. His dad started it.
Before my time.
Yeah, and a big car nut. So I was just happy to give him the Lee Bodette Award, and he seemed pretty pleased about that.
Yep. Yeah, we did those. Someone who works with, for the company made those out of spare parts and things like that. There was like a clutch plate and some springs and pistons. It was really cool.
Yeah, not your ordinary trophies.
No, a lot of those were...
They were all handmade. Like that.
Yeah.
Original, you're never going to find, another one like it.
Which is cool.
That is very cool. And the other trophy that we gave away for Sport Car USA, that sucker was heavy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he threw a whole half an engine on it.
I picked one up and I'm like, oh, that's good. And then the other one was very bottom heavy.
Exactly.
It wasn't going anywhere.
No, it's not going anywhere. You don't have to worry about any hurricane floods or anything falling off the shelf. Well, it might go through the shelf.
I know. Speaking of that, we had great weather.
We did.
We couldn't have asked for better weather because we brought 5-6 cars over.
Yeah.
Corvette, Challengers, a ZL1, Camaro. We had a lot of people that were really interested in those.
Yeah, we're in mid-June here in Vermont, and
July,
mid-July
already,
and it has been a horrendous summer so far.
You can't catch a break.
It rains
like
seems like
really
every day.
Hot, or we've had flood waters or we've had the smoke from the Canadian wildfires.
Yeah, a lot of smoke and the flooding in Vermont. You've probably heard about Hurricane Irene, which I guess was about 10, 11 years ago.
Yep.
This is just as bad, if not worse. There are people that just can't even get out of their homes. Mud, water, businesses destroyed. This is going to be ongoing for another 10, 12 years before Vermont gets back to normal. So our hearts are out for all of those people affected by this latest flooding in Vermont.
Well, even tying back to our episode last week, which was episode 19. So this here is our 20th episode, which is crazy. But when we talked to the car chief for the number 24 car, they had a race in New Hampshire Motor Speedway. It was supposed to be Sunday. It got rained out, got pushed to Monday.
Yeah.
Update on that. I don't think they ended up taking home the checkered flag, but the weather is affecting so much stuff. So we were really lucky to have.
Yeah. And Sport Car USA is based in northern Vermont, as we mentioned. It's St. Albans. We're very close to the border of Canada.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I don't think we were affected by the flooding at all.
Us personally, no, not in this area,
right.
Luckily.
Yeah.
But.
Not bad in this area, but as I mentioned, the rest of the state, not so much. It was a great time at the car show, the Klassic, and we saw, I don't know, maybe 150 cars at the Klassic.
Yeah, really good turnout.
Some very unusual vehicles. There was a Fiat there. Remember that one?
Yep. Yeah, we got a chance to interview that guy. I remember we were setting up our tent. We were there early. That guy got there way earlier than most people.
Yeah, it's his first show.
He got a good spot.
Yeah.
He actually worked on that car with the Quinton brothers, who we've interviewed here and we've done a lot with in the past. But I heard it drive by, and I heard it first, loud. And I saw it, and I was like, no way that's that car.
Tiny little thing.
Yeah,
tiny.
Loud. 2-stroke.
Yeah.
Little, go-kart engine, just about.
I think I could pick it up by myself.
Yeah. It's cool because that car, he was explaining, it's on, the engine mount is on springs with, rubber grommets.
Yeah.
So you see it when he accelerates. We have, if you're watching on YouTube, we have footage of it coming up. You can see it rock back and forth, like it's floating in the engine bay.
I almost think
the exhaust moving.
I almost think the old Volkswagen Beetles used to do that. I mean, I'm talking the real old ones before your time, but I think they used to rattle a little bit like that. But that was cool to see. And this car that Scott is talking about, Scott Nickerson from Sport Car USA, came from Sicily.
Yeah, that's right. He showed me later. He came and showed me pictures of the original owner who had taken videos of it because he got it imported from Sicily.
Yeah.
And he pulls it out of this little tiny garage onto a cobblestone road and into dirt in a field. He was just out somewhere with this tiny little Fiat. And
and he brought up a point, which we've brought up on this podcast a few times, that there's a seat for everyone, and a car that you would not think was cool when you're growing up becomes very cool when you're an adult.
Right.
This car, he gave kind of the same analogy. He said, in Sicily, this is no big deal.
Right. Just a car.
It's a car.
Yeah.
But you get it over to the United States, came over on the boat in a crate, and it's just something special. I think I saw more people looking at that Fiat than any other car in the car show.
Yeah, there was some cars there that were insane rebuilds or... we saw a Charger, a newer Charger that was there that was on air suspension and lowered right to the ground. People were looking at that, imported Fiat.
Yeah.
And, I think part of it is it's not necessarily the car, because the car in itself, if you were to see it driving by and you didn't hear it, you'd be like, oh, that's a, whatever. It's not that exciting. But when you talk to the person, you hear that it came from Sicily, it's actually an Italian vehicle. And you hear the stories behind it. I think that's what makes those cars cool. It's not necessarily their physical appearance or any of that. It's just the story behind them that,
No question. That's what car shows are all about. People love to talk about their cars, and why not? They're proud of them. There's a story behind every car, not only a seat for every car. There's also a story behind every car. I said to the guy that owned that Fiat, wouldn't it be cool to go back to Sicily and meet the person who had that car
and show them what you've done with it?
Yeah, and just say, hey, I own your car.
Yeah.
I mean, thousands of miles away, right?
That would be super cool.
So yeah, we've got some interviews coming up that we're going to play here on our Test Drive podcast. We spoke with a couple of gentlemen who were best friends, and they had not matching Corvettes, but pretty close.
Yeah, 1 year apart.
They were a C6, the last of the C6, and these were special because they only made 250. of them, I believe. Is that what he told us?
I believe the red one, if I'm not mistaken, was like a super rare configuration.
Yeah. And what year were those cars? I know it was a C6.
13.
I think yeah, because the 14
12,
is the
maybe.
C7.
Yeah. So one of the guys said he was buying the car at the dealership, and there was a C7 there. So it was like right at the crossover of when one was going in, one was coming out.
And those cars were mint. I mean, immaculate.
Yeah. And there's some aftermarket stuff done to them to customize them, but yeah, they're beautiful cars, stock even. So
no question. No question. Love hearing the stories, as I mentioned. We had a really good time there, Scott. Were there any cars there or car that really stood out to you besides the Fiat? Is there a vehicle there that was like, wow?
Well, hopefully, knock on wood, we have our car show, our showcase this coming Friday. When you're hearing this, it'll be the same day. So hopefully we have our car show, and we talked to a gentleman there who didn't want to talk to us that time, but was willing to talk to us Friday. So you might see that interview if we have the show. But he had a Jeep there. Do you remember the Jeep?
Oh, yeah. Machine guns.
Yeah, it was lifted, and it had anything you could think of, like survival-wise. Yeah. It was black and orange. It's a guy who does, I think he said he does hay bale sculptures, I guess.
Yeah, something like that.
He puts like hay bales together and makes like artwork and things like that, like tractors out of hay bales. And
it's something you'd see like in a movie.
And it's like a zombie killer.
Yeah.
It's got these big fake guns mounted
Mission
on the top.
Impossible, just going off cliffs and everything. It was just incredible. He said he will talk to us on an upcoming podcast, so that should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear everything he's done with that. That's super interesting. And as far as sports cars goes, I think there's just so many there that people put a lot of love and care into. And time, especially time's the big one.
Right.
There were some there that we have seen other car shows that weren't able to make it to the Classic. But a lot of those cars hopefully are coming up to our show, so we'll get to talk to them soon. I
do have to tell a funny story. It involves Scott Nickerson. Scott, you don't even know where I'm going with this.
Nope.
But you're what, in your mid-20s?
27.
Okay, so Scott is 27 years old, and he's used to SUVs and sport cars, modern muscle, all that kind of stuff. Some of our Sport Car USA staff, we were picked to go out and select a car for the award that we created. Mm-hmm. Not the Lee Bodette Award, but it was the other award. And one of the guys from Sport Car USA came back, and I said, well, what did you pick? He said, well, I don't know. He says, I think it's a station wagon. I said, okay, yeah, sure. So I told Scott this story as we were getting ready to present our award. I said, Scott, I hope they didn't pick a station wagon. I don't know why. I just don't think a station wagon should win an award at this show. And Scott, do you remember this?
I think I know where you're going with
You
this.
pointed over to a vehicle and you said, I think that's it right there.
Well, they said blue. To be fair,
they did say blue.
It was blue.
They did say blue, but it was a four-door Fairlane, I believe.
It may have been a Falcon.
May have been a Falcon, Ford Falcon, but it was a four-door sedan. And I'm thinking,
I got bad eyes. Okay?
I'm just thinking Scott's 27 years old. He might not know what a station wagon is.
I've been alive during station wagons. They definitely don't exist in the most of my life. But no, I do need glasses. I'm going to get. I got an appointment in August.
I swear you do know what a station wagon is.
Oh yeah, they're ugly.
Okay. The last station wagon I can think of, and it really wasn't even called a station wagon. Remember Ford came out with a vehicle that looked like a hearse, is like square.
Was it a
in
Flex?
the back? Yes,
Ford
I think
Flex?
it was a Ford
my friends,
Flex.
I'm in one of my groups of friends. We always have a joke about those. Every time we see one, we have to send a picture because they're just the most hideous looking thing.
Oh yeah, and like I said, to me they look like a hearse. Yeah, but I could see where somebody might say, "Hey, that's a station wagon."
My mom always had Subaru wagons.
Yeah, okay. But the SUVs, right?
Yeah,
right.
Not a true station wagon.
Right,
Not like what's the vacation movie?
Oh yeah, with Chevy Chase.
Yeah,
Vacation.
That's a
station wagon.
That's a station wagon.
Yeah, that's a nice station wagon.
Yeah, it might win awards now at a car show.
Yeah, if you could figure out how to put gas in it. Remember that? Clark.
Yep.
Great times. So we want to wrap this up. As I mentioned, we've got some interviews coming up. We hope that you'll enjoy those interviews. This is our Test Drive podcast. I'm your host, Lee Bodette. We have Scott Nickerson here from Sport Car USA. We have Dan here from St. Albans. Dan, you have a very unusual Volkswagen Bug. Tell us all about it.
It's a 74 Super Beetle. The fenders have been cut back, and I've got bigger tires on here and everything. It's got a 1600 engine in the back. Pretty much standard fare. It's not a speedster or anything. It's just a kind of boulevard cruiser, kind of car you take out when the weather's good and just, look around at the world and enjoy the sun. So
Let's take a little walk around it, Dan. Sure. And you can tell us a little bit more about it. Where did you get this vehicle, and what kind of shape was it in?
So I bought this car pretty much as it was. Guys out of Burlington, the guy's name was Aaron Collette. He put it together. He did the work. He cut it all up and painted it in the whole 9 yards. And picked it up off the side of the road for $2,000 like 20 years ago. I know. Those days are gone.
So you've had this for 20 years?
Had it for 20 years, yeah. It's got a different engine in it now than it had before, but just a stock 1600 at this point with a single barrel Solex carb. So it's pretty true to how the engine would have come off the showroom when they built it.
Definitely an eye catcher. A lot of people looking at your beautiful vehicle here. Any other modifications you're thinking of?
I want to put disc brakes in the front, and I pretty much just want to, at some point I want to do a dual carb, like a Weber setup in the back. So, but other than that, I'm keeping it pretty much the way it is. Maybe I'll swap out the exhaust at some point, but I'm sort of at a point in my life where I got a lot more time invested in kids and family, so I don't really have time to sit in the garage. But
here we are with Peter from Swanton. And Peter, you've got a beautiful yellow, is it called Canary Yellow Corvette?
No, it's Velocity Yellow.
What year is it? Tell us all about it.
This is a 2013 427 60th anniversary edition Corvette. GM, this was the last of the generation of the C6 generation, and they have GM only made 2,550 of these vehicles. So it was kind of GM's send-off of the sixth generation.
Was it the C7 or C6?
This is a C6.
Okay, all right. I would have guessed C7 on that one.
Yep.
Tell us how you acquired it and if there's any other modifications that you're looking to do to it.
Oh, certainly, yeah. So I ended up purchasing the vehicle after my friend who has the same vehicle. These are 1 year off vehicles, 2013s, and after doing research, I found this one in Clio, Michigan, and me and my son, my oldest son, drove out and bought it. And we actually bought the car in 2014, so it's a 2013 holdover, because the seventh generation had came out, so nobody had purchased this vehicle. And if you can imagine with the low numbers of 2,550 of these being built, it was kind of getting hard to find one that was new anyway.
Where did you end up finding it?
End up finding it, bought it at Sims Chevrolet in Clio, Michigan.
So very difficult. Were you actually specifically looking for this vehicle all over the country?
Yes, I was, yeah. And at that time, they had some used ones and stuff, and at the price point that I was looking for, the dealer gave me a decent deal on it, so we purchased it.
Have you heard of us at Sport Car USA?
Yes, sir, yeah.
Okay, we buy and sell modern muscle cars all over the country. Got a big show coming up this Friday, 5 to 8 at the handy Toyota Chevy location, Exit 20. So we hope you can make it.
I surely will be there.
Hi, my name's Al Pelletier. I'm from Swanton, Vermont.
Al, you got a beautiful red car. Tell us the name of the color and all about it.
Well, thank you. It's a Torch Red, which is Chevrolet's paint code 70U, and that's the only color Vets I've ever owned, so kind of staying with that theme.
What year is it?
It's a 2013, so it's the last of the C6 generation. If people who Corvette speak, they're known by generations, so this is the last year of the C6.
Where did you acquire it, and how did you acquire it?
I bought the car new at McMulkin's up in Nashua, New Hampshire. Oddly enough, I was with my friend Pete, who you just interviewed. We were at the big Carlisle show, Corvette show, the year before, and we actually sat in the car, and I looked Pete right in the eye, and I said, this is my next Corvette, and found the car up at McMulkin's and fell in love all over again and bought it and had it for the last 10 years. Bought it new, and we've had it ever since. Any
modifications to it, or any modifications that you want to do to it?
Oh my God, there isn't an inch of this car that I haven't touched, so I think I'm pretty well optioned out on it. But
you want to tell us a little bit in detail about what this car has?
Well, being the collector edition 427 convertible, obviously it came with the big lump, the 7-liter in it, or as we refer to them, 427s. You could only get these with a manual transmission, which is what I want anyways. Pete already told you the numbers of production. These cars were actually Corvette's known for doing a lot of anniversary cars that are nothing more than a $5,000 paint job, but these cars are actually very unique because they're some of the best of the ZR1 and Z06, which are the top of the food chain in Corvette. So you get a lot of options from both those cars. So this has the complete carbon fiber front clip. So if you look at the hood, it's all carbon fiber. All of the fenders and the floorboards are all carbon fiber, and that's done to save weight, and that's very unique in these cars. You get the Z06 suspension and powertrain, obviously, and the braking. That's all from the Z06. If you look at the car, you can see there's parts from the ZR1. This spoiler is from the ZR1. These rims are factory. I've had people challenge me on that, but those are factory ZR1 rims, which were an option on this car because it's unique. It's the anniversary edition. So these cars were very well fitted out, particularly, as far as the anniversary editions go.
You've mentioned that you've only had red Corvettes, plural. How many Corvettes have you had?
I've only had the two, but we had the red C5 Roadster before this, and that's kind of, I fell in love with it, and that's what made me step up to this car. So,
I want to get your opinion on the C8 mid-engine Corvette.
I love them. When the C7's officer came out, they had them in the showroom when I bought this car because it was late in the year. It was August when I bought this car, and then 2 days later I was driving it to Carlisle. So excellent ownership experience. But the C7, I never felt like I was lacking in car because these are so special. The C8, I like it because the architecture, the mid-engine design, obviously a much differently designed car, and I wouldn't mind one, but at this point in my life, I'm probably not going to go into that kind of debt.
You're pretty happy with this one, that's for sure.
Hi, Lee. I'm Tom Hungerford. I'm from St. Albans. My family has been in St. Albans for a long time. My grandfather started a Ford dealership here in the 40s, followed up by my father and his brother, and have since gotten out of the Ford business. However, I've always had a passion for Fords and especially Mustangs, and was happy to acquire this from the late widow of Steve Bullis from Colchester. This is a 1970 Boss 302. They made about 7,000 of these cars, and this one is one of them. It's had exceptional care, mostly due to the care that Steve gave it during his years while he was a very active car show enthusiast, and it's just a really cool car.
So the Hungerford family owned the Ford dealership for many, many years. What type of vehicles, I guess I should say, what vehicles have you owned in all these years? You've had quite a few Mustangs, right?
I have, Lee. My favorite Mustang was a 68.5 Cobra Jet that I bought from the late James Panona, and I sold that in 1984 to buy my first house, and so I really missed that car, and this is kind of my rebound car. I did a 2007 Shelby GT500 that I thought was going to fill that void, and it did for a while until I knew this car was available, so I kind of pounced on this. But I've had Mustangs all through high school, 65s, 66s, mostly 60s and 70s vintage Mustangs. And then I really got out of the Mustang era until 2003 when they introduced the new Mach 1. That really caught my attention. It had the shaker hood scoop on it, and I just remember during high school I had a friend that had one of these cars, and it had the shaker on it, and I just thought that was really cool. And when they rolled that out in 2003, I thought that was my rebound car. And it was until they introduced the Shelby GT500 in 2007, and I said, well, bye-bye Mach 1, here comes the Shelby. So I had that car for almost 15 years until this one became available, and so now I'm enjoying this car.
And your 2007 ended up at Sport Car USA, didn't it?
It did, yeah. That was a really good, seamless move for us to pass that car on to you guys, and the car stayed locally. I thought I might see it here today, but I have been in contact with a new buyer, and he seems to be pretty happy with it.
Well, Tom, I've seen this car at many, many car shows, as Steve used to go to all of them. Are there any plans for any type of modification to this, or are you just going to leave it the way it is?
Yeah, there's when you get a car like this, the mods are pretty much just keeping it as original as possible, and that's it. You know, I thought about putting power steering on it to make it a little more user friendly, but that's really not in keeping with what the car was built as. So I'm just gonna suck it up and drive it as is, and that's about it. Yeah.
Well, I have a '66 Mustang, and I've tried to get it as original as possible with the manual steering and the drum brakes. It's not a fun car to ride around in too much, but it's cool.
It is cool. You know, they're all cool. You know, and that's what's neat about this show here is that there's a little bit of everything. There's highly modified older vintage cars, and there's people that try to keep them as original as possible. When Steve and some of this previous owners had this car, they would go to sanctioned national Mustang events and enter this car to compete with originality. You see a lot of the stickers under the hoods; those aren't there by accident. That's the way these cars were built and delivered. And so a lot of the people before me have done a really good job, and just the battery alone, those are very expensive batteries, and, you know. But that's a period-specific battery for this car, and when they're judged, they take that into consideration.
That's what I like, originality, no question about it. Yeah. All right, tell us your name and where you're from.
Steve, I'm from Shelburne.
Steve, it says Fiat on the front, but it's much more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a modified Fiat 126 that I imported from Sicily.
Let's take a walk through and tell us about this Fiat.
Okay. Well, it's modified. It's got fender flares. It's got bigger tires and wheels. It's got a built motor. The interior's redone. It's a two-cylinder. Started out as a 650cc, and now it's 700 cc's with a big Weber on it and other engine mods, and it's loud.
It is loud. We're going to have you fired up in just a minute. You said you got it in Sicily.
Yes.
How did you come about that?
I have a friend of mine who imports vintage Fiats from Sicily. He restores them over there, puts them in a container and ships them over. And I wanted a 126. He mostly does the vintage 500s. And so I went on Facebook Marketplace for Sicily, and I looked around and found some, and he went and checked them out for me. And we picked this one, and he took care of all the export and import stuff.
How long have you had it, and what type of modifications have you done to it, or what you plan to do in the future with it?
I had about 3 years. I replaced the original motor with another motor, and had the air scoops 3D printed, and other than that, just maintain it.
Any plans? Oh, go ahead.
No plans. I mean, there really isn't much to do to it. I have project cars, and this is my non-project car.
Is this your dream car or just a non-project car?
It's a non-project car, and no, not my dream car. I just like so many different cars that I don't really have a dream car.
What kind of cars have you had in the past?
I started with British cars, then I did street rods, muscle cars, military vehicles, and motorcycles. And now I have this, and I have a 54 Ford Ranch wagon.
Well, we're going to have you fired up now for us, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
All right, let's hear it.
My name's Steve. I'm in Shelburne, and I love Sport Car USA, and I heard they got a great show coming up.
We do. This Friday, 5 to 8, exit 20.
I'll be there.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Scott, we had a lot of fun. We've got quite a few more shows coming up. You mentioned our show at Sport Car USA this coming Friday.
Yep.
Depending on the weather.
Yeah, I'm hoping it holds.
Yeah. Then we've got another show in Swanton, Vermont at the end of this month. And we're really looking forward to a road trip to Lake Placid. Lake George. Excuse me. I always
That'll
get that
be fun.
confused. We're going to Lake
Couple
George.
days.
We're going to rent a house. We're going to go on a steamboat ride, maybe rent a pontoon boat.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a big booth there at the
Adirondack Nationals. Yep.
Yeah.
And we're definitely going to have some, I want to try and do a live podcast. I think that could be fun.
That would be fun.
Just try and pull people in as they go by.
Yeah.
But definitely expect some cool stuff out of that.
But if you are listening to this podcast and you go to the Lake George Adirondack Nationals, please stop in and say hi to us. We'll give you some swag. And
Come chat.
We love hearing from people who enjoy these podcasts as much as we enjoy doing them for them. So with that said, Lee Bodette, another Test Drive podcast in the books. And we want to thank you very much for listening. And remember, let's never forget the men and women serving this great country of ours. Goodbye, everybody.